miss people so bad. You're such a spoiled boy.
Okay. So we're talking about Blanche's letters, and after Grandpa Jack died, Karma...
Okay, Mom just put a lot of things in a garbage bag in the back of her closet. And I swear, I have seen everything. I have seen the photo albums. I have renamed them. I have sorted the pictures. Well, a couple of years ago, these have been sitting in my sewing room for probably 8 years, just sitting in the corner. I started going through it, and there were these 3 letters. And I was totally intrigued by them because they were actually to my Aunt Blanche, which was my dad's older sister. The kids in the Kerwin family, there was Ted, and 2 years later Blanche, and 2 years after that, which was 1924, was Jack, and then Richard, who died as a toddler, and then Aunt Sharon came in 1930. Well, Ted and Jack both had deferments in World War II. They were farm kids. Farming was instrumental. We were in Idaho. We have now invented dehydrated potatoes by a guy named J.R. Simplot. And that's what my grandpa grew, was potatoes and sugar beets. And alfalfa, of course, to feed their own cows. Well, on November 11th, 1943, about the right date, or is it 1944? When did the war end? 45? 1943, I'm going to say. I'll have to double check that, and I will. November 11th, Veterans Day, my dad and Ted, unbeknownst to their parents, drove to Pocatello, Idaho, and enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps. And by Christmas, they were both stationed in Texas, and they were both in pilot training. Ted went a little further in pilot training. He was 4 years older than my dad. And Dad, as he once told me, with the swipe of a pen, a general ended his pilot career because the war was winding down, so it must have been 44 when they enlisted. And the guy's name was Hap Arnold. He was the commander of the United States Air Force, Army Air Corps. Nobody knows that. There's a useless side note, Hap Arnold. Dad became a gunnery mechanic, and I joked about him. Oh, so this is how you're supposed to fly in airplanes? He was either the ball turret gunner or the tail gunner, because he was a little guy and he could fit. And you're going to fix the planes. And he joked with me and says, yeah, that's exactly what I was supposed to do. If something went wrong, I was supposed to fix those puppies in flight. And he loved it, and he would have stayed in the Air Force, but my mother refused. He was called back in Korea. Anyway, these letters came to Aunt Blanche. Aunt Blanche had recently been married against her parents' wishes to a much older man. His name was Bud Livingston, a very nice guy, and they were living in Salt Lake. And for whatever reason, Aunt Blanche saved these 3 letters. One is from my Uncle Ted, one is from my dad, and one is from my dad's best friend, a guy named Ross Adams, who happened to have been in naval signal training in Iowa. There's no ocean in Iowa. There's not even big lakes in Iowa. What's the Navy thinking? But Blanche saved these letters, and they are so quintessential 1940s. If you ever watch old movies from the 40s, yeah, they really did say, it was swell. I have just fallen in love with these letters. In fact, I used them with my World War II class, and I made the kids write back a letter from Blanche, and I got some fabulous responses. I was really tickled. But these letters are such a tie. And her daughter, she has 3 daughters, none of them had ever read them. They'd never seen them. So I made digital copies and hard copies and sent them to them as well. And they do a sisters weekend every year. One lives in Texas, one in Salt Lake, and one in St. George. And once a year they get together for a weekend, a week, whatever. And that was one of their activities, was to read these letters for the first time. But it's such a glimpse. They hated Texas. Dad and Ted both hated Texas. They hated, well, they're racist, what can I say? My father was never fond of anyone of any skin color other than white. Growing up by an Indian reservation, Mexicans, and blacks, oh, sickies. But these letters are they're just fabulous. They are just a glimpse into the era, and it's so personal. You know,
Yeah.
that was the thing. This was my dad. This was my uncle. And I know.
So it gave you a personal connection to the history that you love.
Yeah. And my dad, you know, all I knew was Texas was hell. He hated Texas. When my brother moved to Texas, no, my dad would not go to Texas and visit Brad. No way. It wasn't going to happen. He was never setting foot in that damn state again.
Cool. Okay, well, we'll get copies of those and put it in as the text part, and then I will put in
Just
kind of
make
what
it
you
short.
talked about.
Make it short.
In the
I talk too much.
texture
I'm
part.
a teacher. I talk too much.